Can I just go straight in? How did you feel when you saw that footage of your officers not dealing with the pleas from Henry Nowak that he'd been stabbed?
Yeah, I think nobody could be unaffected by watching that footage. It's traumatic, it's tragic, it's a very difficult watch. So I understand why people feel the way they do and why people are commenting in the way they are. I get it, I understand it.
Mark Nowak said he did not die with dignity. He shouldn't have died in custody. It was inhumane and degrading. Do you agree with all of that?
I can entirely understand Mr. Novak's perspective. I get that, I understand that. And it is when you watch that video, it's a total tragedy. And the reason I want to be really clear here today is that we are apologising and have apologised for the fact that Henry was arrested and that he was handcuffed at that time. You know, we are apologising for that, and we're very sorry for that.
Do you think your officers could have saved his life?
So I think what is clear from the court case and the pathologist that gave evidence that this, sadly and tragically, we couldn't save him. The pathologist was very clear. There was nothing that the police could do that could save Henry at that point. It's very sad and tragic, but that's
right to say, though, that they shouldn't have been pulling out handcuffs. They should have been getting bandages out. And I've seen that kind of training that they do. They should have been stemming the bleeding, right?
So we have said that we are very sorry for handcuffing and arresting him. What they should or should not have been doing is now subject, as hopefully you're aware, an independent investigation. So that will go through what everyone's seen on the body worn, what they knew going to the scene, witness evidence. It will go through everything and come to a conclusion. But it's a fair and independent process. It's not for me to prejudge that in any way. And if I do prejudge it, that's not fair on Henry's family. It's not fair on the officers or anyone involved, because actually, you know, that is a process that exists to deliver fair justice.
Do those officers remain on duty?
So those officers at the moment have been treated by the IOPC as witnesses. They're not suspended. They are part of the constabulary. However, they are not currently on frontline duties.
It was suggested by Mark Nowak that one police officer was allowed to resign before giving an account to the IOPC. Is that right, and why did that happen?
So you would have to, because that's part of the IOPC investigation, you'd have to go to them for details about witnesses and what witnesses did or didn't do. What I can say is one officer, and I should have made this clear, out of the 4 who were on the scene, one officer did resign. But that was the end of last year, and it wasn't in relation to this. It wasn't in relation to this incident.
So you're fully cooperating with this watchdog investigation?
Yes, we are, and we're intent on doing so because we understand and we know why. And how could you not understand by watching that video why the family want those answers? But you know, officers face difficult situations day in, day out. And actually, we need people to feel confident dealing with things. And that's why you've got a due process where, you know, the family's view absolutely must be heard, and officers' views have to be heard. And that's what that due process will enable, so that actually we get to the right outcome. We're very happy to be held accountable. And of course, we will implement and deal with any recommendations from the IOPC.
You'll have seen the headlines about the way in which this has been reported, and some of it is blaming Hampshire's diversity, equality and inclusion training. It's talking about policing being anti-white. What do you say to those criticisms?
So part of what the IOPC will look at is what was in our minds at that time, what impacted the decisions we made. You know, that's got to run its course. What I would say, and I think where you're going there is, you know, do we have a 2-tier type policing system? I would refute that. I would say absolutely not. I see officers day in, day out on the grounds serving without fear or favour all our communities. And I think that's the case nationally. I appreciate other people have a different view, but that's my view.
I appreciate we can't talk about this case, but is there any chance that the diversity, equality and inclusion training could lead to over-caution when it comes to racial matters?
So what influenced whatever happened? The information officers had, their assessment of the scene, what training impacted on them. Those are all questions for the IOPC to answer to get to a definitive position, so that we can understand why what happened did happen. But you know, we've got to let that process run.
mean, there's been talk about the National Police Council guidelines, the wording, saying not treating everyone the same, not being colourblind. What do you feel about that wider debate?
So the wider debate I know is happening, of course, and it came up in Parliament yesterday, of course. The National Police Chiefs Council have responded to that. They're listening to people's views and they are considering those views and the impact it might have on that strategy and plan. We are very much obviously linked into the national position and we'll be working nationally to look at that.
What's your feeling though?
What's my feeling?
Well, you worked in the Met.
Yes.
You would have seen the Casey review. There were definitely concerns around racism towards black people within the Met when you were there. Are we going too far the other way, or do you think actually no, we need to tackle these problems?
I think realistically, and in the context of this case, I'll be speculating about what impacted officers' decision making. I don't think that's really appropriate for me to do that. I don't want to prejudge what's coming. Officers deserve a fair hearing, a fair process, as do, and most importantly, the family. That's the thing. I don't want to pervert that.
But generally, you don't think policing is anti-white?
No, I don't.
Do you think it's anti-black?
I do not think it is. No, I do not think policing. I do not think. So, be really clear. I do not think policing is racist. There are racist individuals within policing. Of course, there are, and there have always been, and we will tackle that and deal with it. But it is not any anti-community. My officers, I see day in, day out, there are working hard for all our communities, from whatever background that they are.
We heard the Reform leader saying this should be responded to with pure cold rage. What do you feel about those comments?
So it's not for me to comment on politicians. They will make remarks as they see fit. There have been a range of different views. What I would say is politicians have a significant platform. So I would be grateful for anything that can help calm some of the tensions, so we avoid situations like we saw in Southampton. I really don't think any politician of any party would want to have seen some of the things that played out in Southampton. The victims of that are very much the community, who see people descend on their community, violent, aggressive, and we put in a robust policing operation to deal with that to protect our communities.
Do you feel like the Sikh community is protected in Hampshire? Because they will be frightened.
I think all our communities are protected. So we are watching very clearly. If you look at our policing operation, we did that for all of our communities. My officers were brave in the face of provocation, violence and threats. They were throwing missiles at, and they protected the public. We did our job. They did well. And I think the community will have seen that we're there to protect them. The tragedy of this as well is that that is resource that could be out community policing, investigating crime, that is then drawn into this space because some people are using this terrible, appalling tragedy as a precursor for violence and to come out on the streets and commit acts of damage things and commit acts of violence.
And how are your officers? Because some of them were injured.
Yeah, so we've had 11 officers who were injured and also a police dog. Fortunately, not seriously, but no officer should be assaulted. No officer should face that level of violence. I'm very proud of what they did that day, but we will continue to police, support communities and make sure that they feel protected. That's our job. That's what we're there for.
The family raised the issue around knife crime.
Yes.
A national emergency, they said. What do you think? Do we need to open guidance on religious exemptions, for example? What's your feeling about what this case tells us?
So knife crime is obviously a very big priority for all of policing because knives out on the streets can lead to terrible circumstances and deaths and murders. What I would say in relation to this incident, it's down for politicians and lawmakers to decide whether the law is adequate or not. What we're very clear about is that the knife used in this murder, when it was used, we charged at that point we charged him with murder and possession of an offensive weapon. The law was very clear in these circumstances that the knife used was an offensive weapon, which is why we charged it, which is why the offender has been convicted of murder and possession of an offensive weapon.